So when you read these things in the Soviet Union in the 30s, and not just the Soviet Union, about fascist Trotskyists, you kind of go, wow, you know, your eyes just kind of roll around in your head until you suddenly say, geez, oh, that's how they get to that idea. And that's when, you know, you need to up your medications. Okay? The key point, though, is that the anti-Trotskyist campaign in Spain did not center on ideological differences. That is, it wasn't about the proper path to the revolution or the proper path for the construction of socialism. It centered around the war, okay, and the conduct of the war. And this is really not surprising, although very few historians in the United States paid much attention. The British and Spanish had done this for a while, okay? It's not surprising because, after all, the Popular Front itself, all that held it together was a common enemy. It was not ideological coalition. It was a common enemy, that is Franco and so on. So what happens then is that throughout 1937, we see this, the logic of this argument being carried out, and the tensions between the two groups rising. And in May of 1937, there's a rebellion, if you will. They're called the May Days in Barcelona, in which anarchists and Pumistas and others take over a telephone exchange, and the Catalan government and the Spanish Republican government eventually are able to force them out. Okay? But in the process of that, accusations fly that in preparation for this, the Pumistas had brought their militias back to Barcelona and thereby weakened the front in the north. It's a field day for the communists. Okay? Likewise, it's a field day for the Trotskyists and Pumistas, who say, see, these guys are no different than fascists. They're going to crush revolution, they're going to crush the honest voice of working people, etc., etc. Okay? Soon after that event, the leader, Andre Nin of the PUM, is arrested. Okay? Soon after that, a bunch of other leaders of the PUM are arrested. The others go off to jail, okay? And they'll eventually go to trial, okay? And they'll be found innocent by a Spanish court, interestingly enough. But Nin is a different case. He is held incommunicado, in secret place for a while, and he's eventually assassinated. Now, many historians have said, well, you know, it was the Spanish Communist Party and their representatives who had this done. But it's important to make some clear distinctions. Stalinists wanted to get rid of the PUM. They wanted to get rid of Nin, but they were doing it politically. That's what Dimitrov saying was, politically liquidated. Okay? The Spanish state and the Catalan government were the ones who actually repressed the party and brought the charges against these people for the trial later in 1938. But it's the NKVD, the police, who killed Nin. These were overlapping but very distinct organizations and interests. Okay? It was a job of the NKVD to kill people who were a threat. That's what they did best, you know? Let people specialize, right? Isn't that what academia is all about? Yeah. I didn't work on 1 year of history, okay? And I'll teach 3 versions of it. No. Anyway, but that's an important distinction, because what we tend to do is lump together all these communist, quote-unquote, activities as if they all do. The Spanish Communist Party, judging from their archives, were as surprised as anybody else that he was dead. Okay? The head of the Spanish government, Negrin, in his diaries, writes, he was stunned. He thought they should all be brought to trial, but then when he found out he had disappeared and was executed, he felt betrayed. Okay? And that sense of betrayal then is going to turn against, is widespread. And it really starts to hurt the Communist Party in Spain. Although it remains the party of war, and it surely was the party of war during this period, now the influence of the Soviet Union, Comintern, and foreign communists are looked at not as positive things completely, but a mixed bag, a double-edged sword, if you will. And the Communist Party starts to actually lose some influence, okay, as other parties start to pull away from them. But the important thing for this is, the point I'm trying to get at in all this, which I guess I should tell you, what the hell, you know? What's intriguing about this anti-Trotskyist, anti-Pumista campaign is that its focus is not on Trotskyist behavior within the Communist Party. That's what it was all about in the Soviet Union. Within the Soviet Party, that's who they're going after, alleged Trotskyists. Leave aside that it's a very flexible and almost impenetrable label. Okay. Rather, what the issue is in Spain is how do we fight the war? What gets priority? Communists argued the war is an overriding priority, but Pumistas and Trotskyists say no. Revolution is an overriding priority. Okay? But the fact that that distinction was so clear to people in Spain allows the Communist Party then to teach its members and to use its press to propagandize this idea and therefore kind of, if you will, undercut popular support for these groups, Trotskyists and the Punistas and so on. Out of this campaign, of course, Moscow is reasonably happy, though they lose the war eventually. Spanish communists are reasonably happy. Okay? The NKVD gets to do its job. But the key point is here that this was not about ideology. This was about policy. Okay? And it's real different if we turn to Mexico. Okay? Same scene. Okay? Communist International, a Communist Party of Mexico. The Comintern expected from its members obedience. The Comintern would develop the party line, if you will, the Comintern line, and everybody had to carry it out. Those same variables remain in place. But Mexico is a different place, okay? And in fact, the Popular Front policy, the anti-Trotskyist policy, took on a decidedly different form in Mexico. Okay? What I look at is this period, basically 1935 to 1940, the period of the presidency of Lázaro Cárdenas, which was arguably one of the kind of more radical phases of the Mexican Revolution. We see nationalization of oil, really pushing forward on land reform, but more importantly, a sense of political and union activism that hadn't been seen in a number of years in Mexico. Okay? So Cárdenas's progressive reforms open up political opportunities for all sorts of labor groups, working class organizations, and parties. Okay? This is to the advantage of the Communist Party in Mexico. But then in December 36, he invites Trotsky to come and live in Mexico. And from January 37 on until his murder in August 1940, Trotsky is living just outside Mexico City in Coyoacán. And so this creates a real dilemma for the Communist Party of Mexico. Okay? And it's the tension between these two, the sense of urgency that you're the Communist Party of Mexico and Trotsky's here and you've got to do something about it, and the sense of we have to build a popular front in Mexico that create a tension for the Communist Party. Okay, it may seem odd, okay, well, let's put it this way. Given that there was probably no more vocal opponent of fascism than Leon Trotsky, there seems to be a kind of implicit contradiction or seeming contradiction, okay, and tension within these two campaigns, the Popular Front and anti-Trotskyism. So the tension is real, but there is really no contradiction here. Because what the Popular Front did was to order communist parties to cooperate with other parties in a national setting. It was different in France and in Spain, different in Spain and in Mexico. Okay? And what this does in Mexico especially is to create a series of centrifugal forces that are going to kind of pull the party in different directions. Okay? The anti-Trotskyist campaign, of course, is all about identifying what's proper communist behavior should be in the negative. And therefore, it's supposed to be a centralizing campaign. That is, we're going to ideologically tighten up the party. We're going to centralize the vision that party members have. So this is a centripetal force. And these two forces, the centrifugal force of the Popular Front and the centripetal force of the anti-Trotskyism, really create great tension within Mexico at this time. Okay? And as we'll see, they create the setting for the purge of the Mexican Party in 1940. Okay. Before the Popular Front was a policy, the Comintern had a policy called the Third Period, or class versus class. It was an exceptionally narrow, sectarian policy where communists couldn't cooperate with anybody, social democrats, liberals, anarchists, their mothers, anybody. I mean, it was really a self-destructive policy. Okay. And that policy was in effect when Cárdenas was elected and began his reforms within Mexico. And in that first year of his presidency,